Michael, if you were to look back now, and we've got sort of digital media, and building a brand is probably a lot more difficult now than it was then. You know, what do you think, if as a startup we're wanting to start now, what would you say the lessons would be today?
I think the same lessons, I think, as in the past. You have to be absolutely transparent and absolutely honest about everything you do, because you know it's going to get into social media. You know the news is going to spread faster than you can control, and you just have to keep the line, honest and faithful and transparent. I don't think there's any other advice you can do. And of course, you need to have somebody on your side who can manage the speed and the message, because there's so many rubbish out there. You know, that people talk about you. I remember even for me, I was talked about all sorts of things when I became more successful and more of a celebrity. I mean, you remember the letters that we got even from Parliament. Remember at the time that about me with drugs, I've never even seen cocaine as much as tasted it, but I was accused of being into all sorts of drugs and things. I don't even know what cocaine looks like. But anyway, it was in those, it's then to manage that, because what happens then is when you get popular or celebrity status, people want to pull you down, and it's quite a drag on you, as you probably know, when people say these things about you and very nasty things, and you can't control it, but now I think with social media it's even worse.
It is worse, but I think that's something that you and I sort of work so closely together, in that when things were really horrible, we would try and get to the source and try and sort that out. So I think that was that was important. The other thing, Michael, is you're in Kenya Airways now. And what's that like for you? How is that from a PR perspective? And what do you think the lessons that you had from Safaricom would take you?
Yeah, I think we haven't, in Kenya Airways, I think because we're so much in the public eye, we're even more in the public eye than Safaricom, because Safaricom, we're providing a service to everybody kind of thing. In Kenya Airways, we're in the public eye because the government is putting money in, and every step we take is seen as is monitored and analysed. And I think here you really understand why you need PR, good PR, but not just PR in terms of nice things said about you in the newspaper, but behind the scenes PR, which I think we don't do very well. Like you saw the incident a couple of weeks ago about these Polish guys, and just said they come to work here. They didn't actually, but that kind of PR, I think, is we need to do a better job with it.
And I think that was something that we did really well with Safaricom. It was actually more the behind the scenes stuff than actually what the public saw.
Yeah. We managed to control the message better, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the other thing with Safaricom is that you made. I mean, here you were with mobile, a mobile telephone that people hadn't even seen, and yet you made people appreciate why they needed it. And I think that was, for me, it was very challenging. And it was not just about the brand, it was just about the industry. So I think we had lots of fun doing that. Part of this series, Michael, is shaping African conversations. And now that you're in Kenya Airways, and it's what the message the foreign media have on Kenya can affect your business so much. What do you think Kenyans need to do to kind of change the African narrative? What could we do better?
I think we do a lot better, but I think we need, it's probably not the nice thing to say, but you need a bit more integrity in government. And I think this is what we lack. More the perception of a lack of integrity in government, and I think this is when people look at Kenya from the outside, even people who want to make an investment, all they see is the shenanigans of what happens in Parliament or what happens in political scenarios. And I don't think we don't do a good job in marketing Kenya. Its true qualities and its true value and its the good things about Kenya. We don't do a good job with that.
Even if they're good stories to tell, we don't
tell them very well. And I think we just let this other stuff, and every country has exactly the same problem. We have the politicians that do things stupidly or say stupid things, and that gets into the newspaper. I think if I was going to say to Kenya, how do we market Kenya? Just look at the good side of Kenya. If you look at, even when Safaricom came here in the early days, what were the great things? If you look even today with Kenya Airways, we have a fantastic literacy rate. Not many African countries have the literacy rate that we have in English. It's a huge strength
to have.
Even the new CEO of Kenya Airways says that's why our pilots are so much in demand, because they speak English. If you go to Poland and where he came from, they don't speak English very well. So we have a high literacy rate in English. We have a very entrepreneurial population. We don't say much about that. If you want to come here and you want to hire people, you will hire entrepreneurial good workers. You will definitely. And we have a environment which would encourage people to come and live and work here. And we don't say much about it. You know, we talk about the traffic jams and the no electricity and those kind of things.
So we don't really celebrate ourselves.
No, we don't.
You know, we really don't.
And I think, just from a point of view of Africa, you know, I think we bemoan always our fate about where we are as related to the east, to the Singapore and Malaysia and all these countries. I always say we're always on the brink of success because we have all the necessary materials to be successful, but we never get over that. We never get over the corruption and this greed that inhabits, you know, the top echelons in this country, and that's, I think, we have to overcome.
So, Michael, where do you see Kenya Airways now that you're? I mean, it was something that you always wanted to do. I remember years and years ago, you're like,
yes.
you know, the one thing I want to do is I want to change Kenya Airways, and you know what? You called it in because you now have that. And where do you see? I mean, I know you wouldn't do something unless you were sure that you could turn it around. So I think you're determined to turn it around. You've got a lot hinging on turning it around. But where do you see Kenya Airways in the next, say, 3 years?
Look, first of all, I didn't take this job because I thought I could do it. When I took the job, I didn't know it was in such bad shape. That's the first thing. That I know. I was persuaded by the powers that be that I should come and do this job. So I wasn't sure. Now I'm determined to be successful because my legacy in Kenya is Safaricom and M-Pesa. And
so much hinges on it.
I can't destroy that legacy by failing with Kenya Airways. So I have no option to be successful. And so we're going to be successful. Where will we be in 3 years' time? I think we will be a successful airline in 3 years' time. But it's going to take 3 years. It's not going to happen in the next 6 months or 12 months.
It's a journey.
It's a journey, and it's a long journey, and it's a difficult journey. And we need a lot of ingredients to make it successful. But we have the ingredients. We just need the patience of everybody to say, guys, we're going to turn it around. Taking on Kenya Airways was not exactly my dream job, okay?
But it was something that challenged you,
but
though.
Something, I nearly took the CEO job, I must say,
remember.
but I nearly did, but I didn't, fortunately. But it's something that is really challenging and it's a very interesting industry, but it's really can be the pride of Africa, and once more it could put Kenya on the map, because if you look around Africa, it is probably the only airline that is still, not in government hands.
So, Michael, I remember when we first started talking about M-Pesa and, this idea that obviously the team had and that you had, and you were sharing it with us, and we were sort of worried about how we were going to do it when there was no legislation around that, and, what was government going to say? And I think what we did was just decided to go ahead and do it. And we had the central bank governor with us, and we had the minister for information with us, and we had the minister for finance with us. So everybody that was in government possibly...
It was a masterstroke, I think.
...could come and do that. But tell us a little bit about the M-Pesa story and how, look at what it's done for Kenya. It's amazing.
It's a really interesting story about innovation and what can be done. And, M-Pesa, I think, they talk about the Silicon Valley of Africa is Nairobi but it's because of M-Pesa.
Mm-hmm.
Because we created this environment where things can succeed and innovation can succeed if you do it right. And if you look at all the innovation in Kenya that's created the Silicon Valley, it's all based on M-Pesa. So, M-Pesa was the driving force. But at the time, in 2006, when the idea was brought to me about this possibility of using your phone for the microfinance industry to send and to disperse and microfinance loans and repayment of microfinance loans, I was just in a company that I thought should be extremely innovative. And so it was just another idea. We said, of course, let's do it. Let's try it. We trialed it in Thika. We saw that there were more possibilities for it. And then we launched it in 2007 as a masterstroke. We were with the Minister of Finance sending money, the Minister of Telecom sending money to the Minister of Finance up in Kipipiri or something like that, if I remember correctly. Yeah. And it was filmed and live. Yeah. And thank God it worked.
Yeah, thank God it worked. Yeah,
there was a satellite thing up there and everything worked. And, we did not know it would be so successful. We really didn't know. But what it took was just absolute determination, passionate determination to be successful. And we drove it really, really hard. There wasn't a day when I didn't go down to the third floor in Safaricom House and say, how many subscribers did you sign up yesterday? And if they didn't meet their private target, I got very angry. And I basically said, you have a target, 1 million customers by the end of 2007, or I fire all of you. And they said, it's so difficult, it's this and that and whatever. I said, I don't care, you're going to do it. And we did it. And that was what turned it around. But what people forget is that people say we were successful because we were dominant in the field. It wasn't that. We were just determined to be successful, and we spent a lot of money.
Absolutely, and I think we did it and decided to ask for forgiveness as opposed to permission,
Yes,
because the process of asking for permission from government to do it was going to be too complicated. So just agreed to go ahead and launch
Well,
it.
do you remember the story, the famous story with John Machuki? Do you remember that story?
remind
Okay,
me.
so when we were successful with M-Pesa, in about 2008, it was obviously starting to take, and the banks were starting to get really worried.
Oh, that's right.
And the banks got really worried, and they formed a subcommittee of the banks to try to stop M-Pesa. And so they started to ask questions in Parliament. And one day they cornered Minister Machuki. I don't know if you remember. You remember John?
Yeah.
Really
of
nice
course.
man.
Yeah, nice man.
Very special guy. They cornered him and they said, this M-Pesa thing, what do you think about it? And he didn't know anything about it. So he said, I will investigate it and it will not end well. And I saw it in the news the night before. And the next morning I went to his office, and he was one of those ministers that went to work early in the morning.
Really early, like 6 o'clock in the morning.
So I thought I would be there before him. I was there at 6:30 and he was already there.
Yep.
Anyway, he saw me and he said, come in. And we knew each other because he was my minister before.
That's right.
And anyway, and he said to me, Michael, what's this M-Pesa thing? Show me. And I explained to him how it worked, and then he still couldn't understand. So I sent money, that's a long story, so I don't want to take more time. I sent money from my phone to pay his foreman on his farm up in the Aberdares.
Yeah.
And he was amazed. He was absolutely flabbergasted that this worked. So he said, I'm going to talk to the old man being the president.
Yeah.
And he took it to President Kibaki, and Kibaki was just, he said, that's fine.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
I
then
remember
he
that.
famously said, don't you worry, I'll take care of it. And 2 days later, there was in the full-page advert in all the dailies that said that the government, the Treasury, the National Treasury, and Central Bank had audited M-Pesa, and there was nothing wrong with it. And that was the end of the bank. That was John Machuki. And that from there it just took off. And then, of course, it's for me that was the greatest thing that we did, because that's a product that really, really changed people's lives.
Changed. I mean, revolutionized.
And became successful and was financially successful. So it was a perfect product. I often tell my team, or told them that, you should be paying me to work on M-Pesa, because it's such a beautiful, fantastic product.
And I mean, the government was absolutely right to do that, because it's just changed the social fabric of Kenya.
Yeah.